Hello. I know I started this just a second early here because I like to make sure everyone can hear me. The picture looks good. We got my webinar up here and the sun is shining. My goodness, what a beautiful and wonderful day to be alive and to be a parent, raising these tiny little humans that are usually like a chip off the old block. So I just think these kind of conversations are so fun for parents, and hopefully you're watching this and you are in a good place. If you're not, it's great too. This is why you need to be on here, is to just let yourself, give yourself a little bit of grace, give yourself some peace, let you know that you are a parent, likely an amateur parent, likely raised by an amateur parent, because so far I haven't met any professional parents yet. I think we really learn along the way, and it becomes our journey, not only health, but parenting, becoming ourselves, finding and coming into our own. It's all such a journey, and I'm gonna just be a little bit of your guide along the way, which is my very most wonderful, fun thing to do. I have to tell you what is to be able to help people understand the true healing power of their body. And a lot of that can be really actually, at least when I started out as a parent, kind of frightening because, especially when they're little, you're like, I don't know, is everything okay? What's going on? What do I need to know? And we can really just overanalyze things. So we're going to kind of break this down into the nuts and bolts of what to know about your body, how to understand it, how to really trust it, and knowing these are the highlights of what you can do for yourself and your family. And I've got to say, holistic parenting isn't just roped into health. It, of course, is a really big piece of it because our health is physical, our health is emotional, our health is mental, it is spiritual, and there's a lot that comes into it. So we're going to be talking a lot about how your body works and how you can get all those categories of your life even syncing up better and more. So some of the things that we talk about often in our office, and I know that there's people on here that have registered that are patients in our office and some who aren't patients in our office and are listening to this message. One of the number one things that I want people to know is that your body was designed to be healthy, to self-heal, and to self-regulate. And when you have that foundation, I think that's some of the firmest foundation you can have in understanding what's going on. And unfortunately, stress gets in the way, which is what we're going to chat a little bit about, how it just kind of robs our energy and our healing capacity, but also our emotional energy as well. So here we are in this continuum, and you're going to have it's kind of a sliding scale, right? Your health is, and your journey on this planet is, and what we want to do is continue on to what we would call 100% health. So if there was a scan or a scale, and you guys have probably seen me do this analogy before, of 100% health. Oh, you know what? I'm opposite here, so I'm probably kind of confusing you guys. 100% health and 0% health, which would be death. And I know that sounds morbid. And where we actually start to experience symptoms where our body feels ill and there's chronic symptoms happening is at about 50 to 60%. So that's a pretty cool design of our human body. If you want to look at it on the glass is half full side of it, that like, wow, our body really can do amazing things with just not a lot. But then we got to think like, oh man, I'm at 50% health capacity here. What do I have to do to build it up? So I always say, listen to your body when it whispers so you don't have to hear it scream. And what we want to do is have people live up on this other half of our life in this positive direction where your body's making really good choices on its own. And it's feeling healthy, it's feeling energized, and we aren't over analyzing everything, because that's one thing that I think that I run into with pediatrics and parents is we just want to over dissect and figure out, oh my gosh, here's the list of things that are going on. I think I need to do XYZ. What's happening? Something's not normal. And there's something to be said for a mom gut and trusting and understanding, yes, there's something else going on. And then another thing, just to be able to put yourself at ease, not jump down the rabbit hole and think worst case scenario, everything's going wrong. I'm a terrible parent. Oh my gosh, my kid has whatever, and the neighbors don't, and the friends don't, and all the things that we can do to compare ourselves, and instead know where you want to be on that journey and where you and your child are destined to be, and that we're all going to get there at different points in our lives, and we don't need to use comparison necessarily to get there. So it just, you know what, I think we just do that way too often. So you get on your own journey, and I'm going to help you along that way. This poster is up in my office, and it says that you live your life through your nervous system. So on this health continuum that you're on, every single thing has to be processed through your nervous system. And I've probably heard this before I really understood it, but every single emotion, everything you see, taste, feel, touch, has to be processed through that nervous system. Every single virus that you fight, every food that you consume is processed through your nervous system. And here's kind of the cool thing, is that your nervous system never forgets, which sometimes you're like, oh, wow, that could be a really great thing and really a not so great thing. Your brain has 300 trillion bits of information that reach it every single second. We're consciously aware of 50. Which seems absolutely incredible. But what will happen is there'll be some interference and some disturbances to those signals. And like I chatted about before, we don't necessarily know, but our innate does. We call that our innate intelligence, that 300 trillion bits of information. The educated intelligence is the 50 signals that you are actually consciously aware of. And those are the ones that usually get in the way. Our educated intelligence does. Those are the worry ones. Those are the ones that are thinking, I know better than my body, which is not necessarily true. So you really do have all the tools inside of you. And you know what, kids, man, I got to tell you what, they're making 1 million new neurological connections a second from birth to 3. It's an incredibly fast system that's going up inside their body, and they are literally taking in their world. And to most kids, you are their world. And I know that can sometimes feel really heavy, but also should be really wonderful knowing that you have the biggest influence on them to be able to help them in that development. And here's a cool thing. If you've ever thought about, I just want you guys to think about if you've ever taken yourself back, your nervous system's gone back to the past where you smell, maybe some cookies and you think of grandma's, or you hear some ocean waves and it takes you back to a vacation or, surfing or something that you did. Your nervous system really does remember everything that's going on inside your body, but it can also be the reverse and a trigger of, you hear that horn honk or a crash or something and your body is, suddenly startled, or a baby crying because that was actually traumatic to you. And one of the things that we help people do in our office is really process through that, because we don't want that stuck stress to be there. What we want is people to be very adaptable to stress. Not that we won't experience stress, not that your kid's going to be stress-free, nor would we want them to, because we want their bodies to become more adaptable, just like exercise. Exercise is actually stress. When you lift weights, when you run, when you jump, you're causing damage inside of your body, but it's to be able to build it up. And we're going to talk a little bit later about repairing from stress and how that happens. But it's really important to know that stress can be a good thing, but when it's stuck and trapped somewhere, it can really rob us of our energy. As I was saying before, it prevents our bodies from their ability to do those things that they're designed to do, self-healing and self-regulating, because it is an energy suck. And we're going to look at a little bit closer on how that happens and exactly what's going on to the physiology of our body when that occurs, which is kind of empowering, I think, to understand, here's what's happening. Here's what my kid's going through while they're experiencing stress. That way you can even walk them through it, and then to make sure that they're recovering from it as well. So stress comes in 3 forms: physical, chemical, and emotional stress. I'm going to kind of break all these down as well. And that way you can have a better understanding of, maybe you didn't even realize that there was stress in their life, that you were doing something that you shouldn't, or you might be like, man, I'm doing something right. Chalk up some of the positive as well. And just be proud of yourself for what you're doing as a parent. And then some of the other ones you want to take notes, be like, note to self, don't do that anymore. Right. It was like when my kids' 4-year-old teacher or 3-year-old teacher, whatever it was, we would repeat back the things that he was saying because we thought it was cute when he said it wrong. And she's like, well, I mean, yeah, it sounds cute and all, but he's never going to really hear it said the right way if you keep doing that. And you're like, oh, Yeah. Wow. Whoops. Like sometimes someone just has to point it out and you're like, don't do that again. So, you gotta be able to laugh at yourself. He's fine now. Anyway, so chiropractors call these the 3 T's: thoughts, traumas, toxins. It's a little bit easier to remember. It's just an analogy, but often we don't necessarily think of some of these things as stressors. Once again, I'm going to go through these here in a little bit, but knowing that, yes, we should pick our battles, but also that stress can be a positive thing. So we're going to look at physical stress first. And sometimes we might think of physical stress in, car accidents or falling and tripping. And we talk a lot about birth trauma in our office as well, being yanked out of the birth canal, being super traumatic before you've even, been earthside. But physical stress is actually worse when we're not moving our bodies. So screen times, technology, being in a seated posture, anybody that might have a office job where their body is not moving, that's actually a really big stressor to our brain. If you remember, the brain and the nervous system controls everything. Everything's run through that, and it needs to be fed. So your brain is fed through movement. Anytime you bend, you move, there's electrical impulses from your muscle that are going to charge your brain. It's like charging your batteries, your brain's battery energy. And that's why you go out for a walk, you exercise, you do something, your body feels happy. It feels energized. Your brain feels clearer. And you're like, oh man, I'm glad I got up and moved, or I exercised. It was totally worth it. That's because you're charging your brain's battery. So when you're sitting still and you're not moving, your brain is looking for other ways to get energy. It might need stimulus from other areas. It might need hits of dopamine. It might, ask for some sugar, some quick hits to the brain instead of real energizing movement and health. And that's really, really important. 60% of it actually comes from the spine. Not a lot of people realize that. About 10% per limb. That's something that's called proprioception. So where is your body at in time and space? It's something that's really important for everybody, but athletes pay a really close attention to that. What's going on? What kind of agility, reaction time do I have? And it becomes exceedingly important as we age, and in the elderly or the aged population, when they start to become a fall risk because they've lost that orientation. And usually it's because their body's not moving well. Movement is truly life, and we pay such close attention to the spine because, like I said, 60% of it's feeding the brain, and your brain is largely mechanoreceptor driven or movement driven. Just like when our babies were little, we're looking at motor milestones. Are they on track for their motor milestones? If they are, we know that the brain is on track. Great. It is still developing that way. Just like I was talking about birth to 3 making 1 million new neurological connections a second, that motor movement is feeding and organizing the brain. So we measure it in our office. So those of you who are patients, you've seen this scan before. These are those electrical impulses from the spinal cord feeding your brain. We want to look at the organization. We want to look at the amplitude. Sometimes there's areas that are fatigued and undertoned, which we see a lot of times in parents or people that have experienced chronic stress. And other times they're very excitable and they're high energy, and it ends up putting our kids or even ourselves into more of a exhausting, not exhausted yet, but exhausting our body type of a mode. And we want neither. We don't want to be exhausted or exhausting ourselves. We want nice, even energy to be able to, once again, handle and adapt to stress. So feeding your brain well is my number one thing. And yes, there's other things and very specific exercises you can do. If you ever look at like cross pattern to the brain, that's something you can write that down. That would be activities where you're using different sides of your body. So taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, anything with, monkey bars, swimming, planking, Pilates, bird dogs, write that kind of stuff down. If you are feeling like your brain is having an input error, or even your child's, once again, parents have got to be of clear mind too, of course. But if you feel like your child's having that brain organization issue going on, add some of that into their life, and they're going to get better feedback to the brain when they can use both sides of their body at the same time. I know that there's a specific, exercises you can probably even look up for brain training that will help guide you through doing that. And of course, if you feel like you need absolute professional help, you know what to do. Call somebody that's an OT or someone that really focuses on that. And that's something that we monitor and follow kids through in our practice to make sure the brain is making the right choices. It is organizing itself. We aren't worried about exhaustion or being exhausted. That way the brain, everything else we're doing, whether it's exercise or nutrition or school, tutors, maybe you're doing occupational therapy or behavioral therapy, that the brain is getting the right input and it can accept all of the other things that we're doing. And things work better that way. It's just fantastic. Once again, your body's designed to do these things. We've got to put it in the right environment to get there. So this is my favorite little poster that I have on here. That is our brain body connection, where it has the spinal cord. And I know you guys can't read it because it's too far away. And many of you patients have seen this before, where we have this first column here of all of the organs and glands inside of our body. And when we experience stress, what some of the effects and what that can look like. And yes, effects are just another nicer word for symptom, but what is your body telling you is going on that you're able to listen to it whisper before it starts to scream? Or maybe there's a lot of screaming already going on. What's going on and where is the cause? Where's the stress? What is happening? Is it neuromotor development, or is it an organ and gland issue? Is it some sort of nutritional issue? And we look at all of those in the office as well and help parents just, undercomplicate it instead of overcomplicate it. Because when we have, once again, the brain and body fully connected, we aren't dealing with all sorts of chronic diseases and issues. We're allowing the body to restore itself naturally, and as a child, developing appropriately. I just saw a meme on somewhere on social media that had said that, the quote of like, children are so resistant, children are so adaptable, or children are so resilient. That's what it was. If they're so resilient, why are we dealing with a generation of adults that are dealing with their childhood traumas? Something along those lines, which is so true. There's often people, when they're an adult, all those traumas have added up, physical, chemical, and emotional. If we haven't taken care of them, they're bogging our body down. They're robbing us of our energy and our healing capacity, and we're dealing with them as adults. So instead of thinking, they're going to be fine, there's nothing to worry about, giving them the building blocks to be a healthy, strong adult is where our hearts thrive at our office at Purpose Driven Chiropractic. And most parents do as well. And once they're given the tools and they understand what's going on, they're on board to do that as well. So what will happen over time when that neurological interference is there, we'll start to see something called dysautonomia. And that's when your organs and glands just aren't running the way that they could or they should or they're designed to. They've been bogged down. They're taking energy. They're trying to heal. As adults, we're looking at hormone dysregulations. We're looking at mood and fatigue, all the things, thyroid, digestion issues and allergies. This is all falls under the category of dysautonomia, which really just means your autonomic nervous system is having some neurological interference. And your brain, that thing we need to feed, that takes up 25% of our oxygen, our nutrients, our blood supply, that thing needs all of that. But so do these other systems in your body, your digestive system, your immune system, and your endocrine system. And those are kind of the three that we'll start to see struggling, typically in that order, but not always, endocrine being the hormones. And often when somebody comes in, we're able to take a look at the blood flow changes in here. Let me go back to that slide. Here's some stress inside the body. This is where there is the primary neurological interference, and this really helps us with our adjusting technique. We use this all the time to figure out, here's the primary, is what we call it. And when things start to cool off, we're going to talk a little bit about how fight or flight works and stress works here in a little bit. But when you start to see the body that is cooling off, it means that it's keeping all the energy internally and not letting it out to the limbs for activity. So it's really important to pay attention to as well in those scans. Emotional stress. Of course, we all know that we don't even need to talk about 2020. We all know that this has been bringing everyone up to here. Everyone's very passionate. Everyone kind of has their own opinion. Some people are not sure what opinion they have, but once they choose, maybe a side of like, this is ridiculous, to, oh my gosh, stay safe. Wherever you're at on this map, it has caused a lot of emotional distress, as you know, but so is everyday life. And here's what our brain doesn't know about emotional stress. It doesn't know whether you are right there in the moment experiencing stress. You are fighting with your spouse, you're upset with the school board, whatever it is, your child's having a meltdown, you're right there in the moment. Or if you're thinking about it, if you're just over here like, oh man, I'm so upset and I can't believe this, your brain doesn't know the difference. It has the same chemical release. And when your body is under stress, there is a release that occurs that changes the physiology of every single cell to follow suit. So let me show you what I mean here. When your body experiences stress, it goes into something called fight or flight. That's your sympathetic nervous system. I'm sure you've heard of it before. That fight or flight response takes what we would call, if you've ever seen this analogy where you flip your lid being your prefrontal cortex. So that's the part of your brain that does logical, creative, rational thought. When you experience fight or flight, and it's you experiencing the fight or flight, it's you experiencing a threat, your child experiencing a threat. You might not think that whatever they experienced was a threat. It was a threat to them. You might not have thought something was stressful. It is to somebody else because they're processing their own stress through their own nervous system in their own way and in their own time. But what will happen is your lid comes off. So you flip your lid, prefrontal cortex is disengaged, your hindbrain or your amygdala, I'm sure you've heard of this, your fight or flight brain that kicks off adrenaline and cortisol and all the things, all the fight or flight hormone responses, about 1,200 chemicals are dumped throughout your body. This brain is impulsive and reactive. It's a survival mechanism brain. So if you've ever talked to anybody with their lid off, you know it's not real great. It's not super constructive, logical conversation. And we do and say things that we shouldn't when our lid is off. So lid's off, impulsive and reactive, blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up. You have all of the energy coming from the internal organs out to the limbs to fight or flee. You've got all your senses turned up, your pupils are dilated, ears, you're trying to hear, your tactile is turned up, you are just ready to go. And what else happens is your immune system typically turns down, however, your inflammatory response will go up. Why? Well, because when you're usually in fight or flight, your body is ready to handle a wound. It thinks it's going to get injured. It needs to repair that quickly. So inflammation goes up, any other system is going down, digestion is going down, all of those wonderful systems we just talked about. The organs and glands are being robbed of their energy when you're in fight or flight. In fight or flight, once again, is designed for survival, but designed for short periods of time. It should be turned off, and you should go back to balance, or what we would call homeostasis. When we are under chronic fight or flight, when it happens over and over and over again, that's when we're seeing these errors. That's when we're seeing dysautonomia. That's when we're seeing people that are chronically fatigued, people that are coming up with what we would call, some sort of medical condition or some sort of diagnosis. That's when we label it. Typically, is over time when our body can't calm down from stress. And as I was mentioning before, all of those new neurological connections that our children are making, they are starting to fire and wire together. And what we don't want is that chronic fight or flight response to be there and to get stuck there. So we need to repair, we need to calm it down. We need to be able to repair from that. I'm going to give you some pointers here in a little bit on how to do that as well. The only time our body heals and repairs and learns is while we are sleeping. That is something called your parasympathetic nervous system. When that thing turns on, your brain is actually more active than it was during the day, if you can even imagine that. It's learning all the things that were going on throughout the day, integrating it. They can actually have had rats fall asleep after they've learned, a maze and all the experiments we do with rats. And they had left the electrodes on where the rat was sleeping, and they watched it redo the maze in its brain, just at a slower rate, learning. It was learning. That's what humans do as well. Parasympathetic nervous system activity is so important. That's why our kids require so much more rest than we do. We still need to heal and repair from the stress we've experienced during the day, but our kids are growing and developing, so they require a lot of rest. So if they don't want to nap, they need a quiet time. I know I told you they have to also move their bodies, obviously pick a balance there. But we're able to measure that as well to say, okay, is this body recovering well? What does it look like internally? Are they stuck in fight or flight, or are they even stuck in parasympathetic, which is a very exhausted place to be and an emotional place to be, because these are very inversely proportional. So if you were to ever take a look at what does the sympathetic nervous system do versus the parasympathetic nervous system, when you look and see at that parasympathetic nervous system, how the branches to the rest of the nervous system really largely come near the brain, and then some lower down in that lower spine in our sacrum. And the sympathetic nervous system activity has to act quickly, have lots of neural connections that are there. And you're looking at the mid part of the back there. So they can't be on at the same time, unfortunately. If you could actually read that, I'm sure you're on a device of some sort right now. They are literally doing the opposite thing. Constrict pupils, dilate pupils, stimulate salivation, decrease salivation, increase heart rate, decrease heart rate, and complete opposite hormone response as well. So if any of you are thinking, well, yeah, this whole year has been a mess of fight or flight, and I haven't done enough to get rid of my stress, because here's the thing that I also tell patients: we don't have to live in a bubble. We don't have to live in bubble wrap. We don't have to avoid all stress. Yes, choose your stress wisely. However, you need to be able to be adaptable to stress. Those are the strongest people. You can experience stress, you can process the stress and let the stress go instead of letting it get stuck there, because that's where it robs us of our energy. That's the trauma that stays for a long time until we can let it go. So here's a picture of that scan. Once again, you probably can't see, but on the left side it says sympathetic, on the right it says parasympathetic. Where we want somebody to be able to get a scan is up here in this green box. And unfortunately, this is a picture of somebody with a very low health capacity, somebody that was actually an athlete that wasn't even healing and repairing from the stress they were causing while with their athletics, that was supposed to be building their body up. This is a place where we can say, whoa, pump the brakes. Let's get our body into parasympathetic. Let's get it into healing. Let's clear that brain-body communication up. Let's make sure the organs and glands can restore and repair. So that was that temperature one. We can look at the exact area of the spine and say, oh, looks like upper digestion right now needs a little bit of support. Here's what's going on. And it's really important to watch it, that ever-changing, once again, ever-changing health journey that your body's on. It chooses, it prioritizes, it knows what to do. When you have all of the right tools and all the right environment, or put your body in the right healing environment, it's going to pick for you. I know there's a lot of times we're like, wow, I'd really like my thyroid to work better, or I'd really like my child's digestion to work better. I'd like them to sleep more. It's going to choose what it wants to do. And usually sleep is one of the first things it does, because what we found is every single chiropractic adjustment puts the lid on. It stimulates that prefrontal cortex. And that's also where that parasympathetic nervous system activity lives. So yes, adjustments are able to do that and kind of reset the brain and calm things down, keep a lid on so we aren't flipping it so easily. There's other ways that you can do that as well at home to keep that. So once we've reset, now what are you going to do to help hone in on those pathways, dig them a little bit deeper, to help, once again, bring that energy to the center of the body, because it's been shunted out to the limbs to fight or flee, is to be still, to make sure you're breathing with your belly, chest breathing, really excited breathing. That's exercise-induced breathing. That's going to raise the heart rate. That's going to tell your body you need more oxygen and a higher heart rhythm. Instead, breathing just with your belly and expanding the belly out, taking really deep breaths, being quiet, ignoring the noise, doing something like meditation. And sometimes it's hard for kids to do meditation. They don't even know what it is, but at least practicing being still, practicing just letting their mind be. And we talk about meditation as a quiet time for your brain, that you are going to have thoughts that come into your brain, but it would be like watching traffic go by. Just the thought comes in, just let it go by. Don't get in the car. Don't get in front of the car. Don't chase the cars. Just let the thought, let the traffic go past and help their body be quiet. Writing has been, if you have a kid of age, and even obviously you're of age of yourself, but have them write their thoughts down, have them write it and help it get it out of their brain. When you put it on paper, it's really, really important. Not only do they say that for goals, but also ideas that are in your head, thoughts that are in your head. When you can get them out on paper instead of letting them perpetually spin. Do you remember that emotional response? Your brain doesn't know whether you're in that exact stressful moment or you're thinking about it. It's going to have the same fight or flight response. Epsom salts and soaking help your body relax. Use some oils, lavender, something that's going to be able to calm your body down. Of course, outside nature is going to be really, really important. Getting a massage, anything that's going to help calm your body down. Yoga is really important, or at least moving your body like I talked about. It's really going to help engage that core and give that feedback to the brain like we chatted about earlier with that physical activity, and sugar. And also I would add on here, which I probably have it in my chemical stress one that we haven't chatted about yet, is is adding in magnesium supplements as well. I probably talked about that. So that vagus nerve, I probably didn't call it the vagus nerve yet, did I? Your parasympathetic nervous system activities run from the vagus nerve. That was that big nerve we saw at the top of the brain where I said parasympathetic is largely run up there. There is a nerve that leaves your brain called your vagus nerve. That's your gut-brain connection. That's the one that runs the whole parasympathetic side of the nervous system, at least the upper 2/3 of the gut. And then that lower one we saw in the sacrum runs that lower GI tract of reproductive organs and bladder. That's down lower. So I often will have patients when they are taking breaths, have them bring the energy from their sacrum all the way up into their brain. And kids, you can help them visualize that as well. They're smart enough to be able to do that and help calm their body down, especially if they've experienced a stressful event. Because once again, what we don't want is an cumulative stressful event. Our kids can experience stress, help them recover and become adaptable and stronger humans for it. So our last stressor is chemical stress, physical, chemical, and emotional. And I know there's people that read all sorts of labels, which is really, really important to do. On what are you putting inside your body? A whole food source is the best. But they've even looked at people, their cells after they've eaten food that is dead versus food that's alive. And guess what? The cells look dead when you've eaten dead cheeseburger and french fries, and they are low on energy and very sluggish. And then when you've eaten something alive and fresh and vibrant, the cells are alive, fresh and vibrant, and have tons of energy to be able to give back. So that's really important. And if you've got a kid who, you know, maybe they aren't loving to have food that's high dense in nutrients. They love their french fries and their pizza and their chicken nuggets, and you're having a hard time getting them to eat really healthy food. There are so many things online. Just get online and do little hacks of like how you can get it in and what's going on. And if you're somebody that's a patient right now, I would tell you, and you're early in your care, I would tell you to be patient with them, because they've been stuck in fight or flight typically for so long. Once their body starts to calm down, they can sit still and eat. They don't need quick sugar to feed that fight or flight response. They're able to try new things, and their body's not so hyper protective. Because when we're in fight or flight and we're stuck there, we're very protective because we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what we're going to experience. We don't know if it's going to taste good. We don't know if we're going to choke on it. We don't know, even if it's meet some new friends or go to the park. When our body's in protection, stuck in protection, it can't be in growth and development. So making sure that you are reading all of the labels, that you know what it says. And I'm talking about things in the air, from household cleaners to things that you're putting on your skin, because it's going to be absorbed in I think they said 26 seconds, something that goes on your skin is being absorbed. So being very careful and cognizant of that. And there's people out there, once again, you can Google, low toxicity, just fertilizers and sprays and hair products. There is somebody for everything out there. I've got some patients, once again, we're all on a journey, who said, you know what, we're going to start making some good choices. then we're going to make better choices, and then we're going to make the best choice. But right now, this is where we're at, which I think is a fantastic idea. I think that is such a great way to look at it and not get yourself too far in the rudders and, thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't do it perfect today. You're getting better every day. You're on that health journey to complete health, to as far as you want to go, to the highest life experience that you want to have, which is really our ultimate goal here. I believe that our bodies we're put here on this planet to serve a very specific purpose. And when we don't have the energy to serve that purpose, we aren't serving ourselves. And of course, we aren't serving others. So making sure that you are living that higher life experience and just very slowly or quickly getting there, however you want to, and however you feel called to. This is a picture that I think is really important that takes a look at all these components. So physical, chemical, and emotional stress. And it's the environment that we can put ourselves into, and depending on how much of these that we're getting or how little that we're getting, it's going to cause, you probably can't see the little arrows there, but it's a perpetual cycle that we have in there called a dis-ease. So not necessarily that you're diseased, but your body is out of ease. It's out of sync. It's out of balance. There's not a homeostatic balance there. It's going to cause interference, irritation, and inflammation inside of our body. That's part of that energy that's being put into, I have these little bugs flying around here. It's driving me crazy. Putting your body into a less than ideal state and robbing it from the energy that it needs. And this big red circle in the middle, that subluxation, that's stress that's been stuck there. That's what we're working on. That's what we're seeing on the scans. And that's what we're working on in the office, is to remove that stuck stress that's been kind of kept us there, locked things down, and bogged down the energy that and our capability to heal. So our other hacks here is always to just not go down the rabbit hole. I think you'll do it all the time of like just over analyzing, over complicating, getting really kind of crazy and making sure that we do all these things right now. All the things that they told me to do, I need to make the change. Oh my gosh, I need to have a gut doctor. I need to have a whatever eye doctor. I need to get tested for chemicals. All the things that people in rabbit holes that people can go down, just calm down. See how the body's doing, see how the brain and body's communicating, look at it over a course or phases of their life, and start to see, is the body needing some extra help and extra nutrients, doing the best you can with what you have, feeding those cells really healthy, wonderful food that's the most you can, getting enough rest and sleep so your body can heal and repair and recover and get into parasympathetic, and then just trusting that it can do it, trusting the energy, trusting your gut as a parent to say, this is what I think we need to do. Here's where I think it came from. This is what's happening. This is what we need to take away or remove in our lives. And just be sure that you've got a family, a team, friends around you that are very supportive of it. Because the second you have somebody that's not, you have a distrusting friend that is very maybe medically minded, very in the rabbit hole, very negative, pessimistic, you need this medication, you need to do this, you should be seeing a doctor, you should do this. Make sure you've got a community of people around you that's really supportive of you and your choices and your health journey. It was the best thing that I can encourage. And sometimes that is losing some friends and some peer groups and people around you that aren't serving you or your purpose or your family. And that way you can feel much more at ease. And of course, parents, you can incorporate all this into your life as well. I think it's really important that we all have sound mind, body, and health, and trust our body. Trust that it's designed to be healthy, self-heal, and self-regulate, and whatever damage was there. Of course, there's physical limitations of matter that can occur, but your body can do wonderful things and repair very beautifully when it's been given the opportunity. And that's why chiropractic exists, is to improve the human experience. So if you're watching this and you're a patient already, you already know about these scans, you know what's going on, and you're somewhere on your healthcare journey. There may be somebody at home that you're like, oh my gosh, we need to get this person scanned. Or if you're even new and you've never heard of chiropractic care, I want you to click on the link here. And if you can't, there should be an offer underneath this. You can come in for those scans for $100, because typically it's about $300 for a complicated case, $189 for any just average case off of the street. And for watching this webinar, for taking initiative into your health or your child's health, or maybe you need the next kid or next family member scan, use that VIP pass. Thanks, guys. Enjoy whatever sunshine's left, and this weekend's supposed to be